Hi, my name is Robert Valencius, and this is going to be a quick tech demo for our app AbevID for our class CIS 111B with Dr. Martin. I'm going to just do a quick demo of the actual app, and John Moser, my partner, he's going to go over the coding, some of the things that we decided to utilize for the app, and potential future enhancements, that we would have liked to add or could still continue to add for this. So I'm just going to jump right into this. This is going to load up a splash screen with the logo that we created for the project. This is the opening screen. Pretty straightforward. You can scan or enter an alcohol UPC. The API we did use, you guys actually can scan other objects, but obviously this is kind of what we focused on, would be the alcohol side of things. So you'll see that there's a bunch of check boxes as well. We have them all checked, but if there's only certain things that you want to look at when you're doing this, certainly you could do that as well. Then once you scan and hit enter or enter the UPC, it'll go into our next screen. So I am going to scan a bottle of Tito's handmade vodka, so you guys can kind of see a quick demo of how this works. All right, now the UPC is in there. All we have to do is hit enter. And once we hit enter, you're going to see, brand name, item name, calories, basically everything that you had checked off outside of that. Now, obviously, this is vodka, so there's really not a whole lot involved with this outside of, calories. Pretty straightforward and simple, and you can do that for basically everything. So I am going to turn this over to John Moser, and he's going to go into, some of the coding that we used and the API that we used to do this, as well as, kind of what our thoughts were on future enhancements. So thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is John Moser, and I will talk about a few of the highlights of our code for the AbevID application. The first thing I'd like to point out is our use of the Zing application for our scanning needs. Upon clicking the scan button, the user will actually initiate a scan request over to the Zing application that will return to us the UPC barcode number from that label. We will then take that upon the pressing of the enter button and store that into a static variable that will then be used through the getMap method within our UPC lookup class. Within that getMap method, we will actually be setting the application ID and key that are used by our vendor for tracking our application, as well as calling our async task in the back end of the application. It will run in the background to execute and return the data from our API call. Within the async task runner, you'll see it's an extension of the Java async task, and we will be using that to actually call the setMap method within the UPC lookup class, passing it that scan content variable from our scan application. Within our setMap, we are actually using it to establish our URL connection with Nutritionix, as well as initializing the JSON parser and input stream, and using those to read the values from the JSON object that was returned and storing that as a local JSON object. From there, from that JSON object, we will then convert it to a string that we can write to our log file for historical tracking and troubleshooting, as well as taking it and converting it to a static hash map of values. Once we have our data now into a hash map of a string, we have every single object and every single value that's returned from those objects that are now usable in our other classes and methods within the application. I'd like to now jump over to our results activity. This is the show data method within our results activity class, and this method will actually be the method that displays the data to the user. First thing it does is it creates an array list of items. And I mention this because we are not using typical string or integer array list type. We are actually using an array list of items, which is not native to Java. So what we needed to do was create a new items type within our application. And it is a item that is a container with two string values in it. One is the identifier and one is the content. So wanted to point that out. That is very important for moving forward, because what we'll actually be doing is we'll actually be pulling the data from our JSON created hash map and using if checks back to checkboxes off of the main activity. And if a user has decided that they would like to display a certain item, we write that item to the array of items, which is our array of items that we have. So that array list now contains all the user selected items that we want. We now take that array and pass it into a item adapter that we are now creating as an extension of Java's array adapter, again, using the type of items. And when we pass that in, it knows to go in and read the content of each of those array items and extract the string values and stick the category and content into their appropriate category of the list view template that we have created in an XML file within the application. It then will take and store those values and return the converted view for us to the results activity, which will then be used in our list view to display it, as you saw Robert display earlier with the scanned bottle of Tito's handmade vodka. Lastly, just point out that we're clearing the hash map of all values at the end of a processing loop to ensure that any subsequent scans do not pull data from a previous scan. So there are some of the highlights of what we're doing within the application. A couple of the enhancements I'd like to touch on. You can see one here on the screen is our gluten-free identifier. We have a desire to display a gluten-free logo for any items that are gluten-free once scanned. We, during testing, noticed that our database provider does not accurately categorize all items as gluten-free that should be. So we're going to backlog this as a future enhancement once we can find another database vendor with an API that we could use to supplement the data we're already pulling. The second and actually third enhancement are combined. We're looking at pulling in the ability to compare two different scans together, to have users compare values from two different beverages and to make a determining factor of which one they may want to consume. As part of that process, we know it's going to take extra data extraction and manipulation time. And with that, we're looking at including also a processing message that will pop up, giving the user at least some way of knowing that something's going on behind the scenes in the application if that takes longer than we would anticipate it to do those calculations. So they are three of the enhancements that we're looking initially to roll out to the application, and I'm sure many more to come. So thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.